Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Marin Communications Forum. I'm Michelle Fideli. I'm the organizer for the forum for the past about 8 years, and it's great to have you with us, and it's really great to be back in person. Today, we're meeting about ending hunger and food insecurity in Marin. We have a great program for you. But before I introduce our opening speaker, I would be remiss if I didn't mention something from my good friend Susan Martinelli from West Marin. She and I served on the Marin Breastfeeding Coalition, and I know she would want me to start the morning off by saying that mother's milk is best nutrition for babies, and it's much more affordable. So thank you, Susan, for being the longtime advocate for infants in Marin. Great. To get us started, I want to welcome Carrie Bowerman from Department of Social Services. Carrie serves on the Children and Families Commission, and she's going to begin our program today. Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Michelle. Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here this morning and to see so many of us coming together around this important topic. Thanks for the opportunity to share some thoughts about the issue of hunger in our community and in our world. I will speak from my perspective today as the County Social Services Director, the person who oversees the CalFresh program for the county, the co-chair of the Marin Food Distribution Group, as well as a proud First Five Commissioner. Yay. Hunger impacts millions of Americans on an annual basis. According to the USDA, more than 38 million people live in households that struggle with food insecurity or lack access to an affordable, nutritious diet. Almost 4% of households are faced with being very low food security and regularly skip meals or reduce the amount that they eat because they can't afford enough food. Households with children fare even worse. 1 in 8 families, that's 12%, over 12%, cannot afford enough food compared to households without children. In 2021, food insecurity was double for Latinx households and almost triple for Black households compared to white households. Age and infirmity also have major impacts on hunger and access to sufficient food, all due to lower incomes and rates of poverty. Food insecurity is closely linked to employment and income and is a key indicator of economic well-being. It's also a social determinant of health because hunger has distinct physical, mental, and social consequences. Moving to Marin, food insecurity has always been a serious issue in Marin. We all know that Marin is generally thought of as a wealthy county, and that makes it much more concerning because many are not aware that food insecurity presents such a significant issue. We've all heard the number that in Marin, 1 in 5 people are at risk for food insecurity, so 20% of our population. I think all of us would find that unacceptable. Hunger disproportionately impacts low-income residents, older adults, families with children, immigrants, and people who are unhoused. About 7% of Marin residents live at or below the federal poverty level. That means a family of 4 earns just under $28,000 a year. So if you think about that for a moment, $28,000 a year for a family of 4. 35% of families in Marin do not earn enough to get by without some sort of public or private assistance. Then along came the pandemic. So COVID-19 really caused the Marin disparities around hunger to become so much more pronounced and dramatic. Job loss across so many sectors resulted in an economic crisis for many individuals and families. Going on lockdown caused many older adults who were previously independent and self-sufficient to have difficulty accessing food due to safety concerns about going to the grocery store, attending a congregate meal site, or even just going out to eat with friends and family. Remote learning caused thousands of school-aged children to no longer have access to school lunches, which were for some of those children the only nutritious meal that they would have in that particular day. During the pandemic, Marin rallied to address the immense community need that emerged. Many of the data points were highlighted at this past Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting, where they presented a resolution to recognize September as Hunger Awareness and Action Month in Marin. The data points that were collected were a collective effort on the part of many of the partners in this room today. Here are some salient points that were shared in front of the board on Tuesday. Between spring of 2020 and spring of 2021, food pantry participation at the SF Marin Food Bank grew by 90%. The Meals on Wheels program grew 43% in the first year of the pandemic and an additional 15% the year after. The Nourish program grew by 50%. At the county, our CalFresh program grew by 31% during the pandemic, and those numbers largely remain on the CalFresh rolls to date. Our hope is actually that CalFresh numbers will continue to increase as California expands benefits to people of all ages, regardless of documentation status. We're all looking forward to that day. The county also participated in the Governor's Great Plates program and worked with 30 local restaurants to serve restaurant meals to 800 local adults for free. These are just a few examples how our community came together to address food access in Marin during the most challenging of times. We've come a long way since 2020, but issues of food access are still with us. Many people of all ages and ethnicities struggle daily to make difficult choices, whether to spend limited funds on food or on other essentials such as rent, childcare, transportation, and medication. Many households and individuals experiencing food insecurity do not qualify for federal nutrition programs such as CalFresh. In the case of many older adults, this could be due to not meeting the income threshold for assistance, but still not having sufficient funds to consistently purchase affordable, nutritious food. During the pandemic, many households received pandemic EBT, elevating the amount of money allocated to each household, sometimes as much as $500 to $700 extra compared to what they were getting prior to the pandemic. However, when the public health emergency lifts, which will likely be sometime in early 2023, that increased benefit will disappear, even though so many families are still experiencing so much need. Fortunately, at the same time, the USDA has increased SNAP benefits by 12.5% to accommodate the current high cost of food in our nation. You'll hear a lot more about these details today with one of our public assistance panels. In March 2020, when the pandemic first hit, HHS, Health and Human Services, launched the Food Distribution Group, a group of county and community partners who came together on an ad hoc basis to coordinate resources, to identify gaps, and to approach emergency food distribution from an equity lens. 2.5 years later, that group has opted to remain together, convening every other month to share information, updates, and opportunities for ongoing partnership. And so many people that I see in the room today are part of that wonderful group. This model is especially useful both for disaster planning as well as when disaster strikes. When facing fire, power shutoffs, excessive weather, flood, earthquake, we are much more prepared than we were prior to the pandemic. The original food distribution group had identified community liaisons from Marin City, the Canal, San Rafael, West Marin, and Novato. And in this way, the group was able to identify and address food issues specific to various geographical regions of our county. This community liaison model is one that is being generalized and utilized today in a way for the county to engage with community in a way that is relevant, respectful, and empowering. That's very important to us. At the end of our forum today, there will be an opportunity to learn more about this collaborative and even to join the food distribution list as a future participant. A big piece of today is not just awareness of hunger, but action around the issue. So there will be a variety of opportunities to further engage and get involved in this work to end hunger locally. For the food distribution group, we welcome participants who come with needs on behalf of the populations they serve, as well as those who bring solutions to the table. I just want to close with a word about the importance of partnership. We strive to continue the partnership between the public and private sector to change policies, to question and to challenge systems that perpetuate disparities, and to create environments where all Marin residents are food secure and hunger-free. I'm just going to end with a quote from Queen Elizabeth II, the late Queen. I'm a big fan. Those of you who know me, I'm a fan of the royal family, and I was one of those crazy people who woke up at 2:30 in the morning on Monday to watch the funeral procession. So Queen Elizabeth said, "Whatever life throws at us, our individual responses will be all the stronger for working together and sharing the load." Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. We want to continue on and start with our first panel. So if I could welcome Jessica Rodriguez from HEAL and her panelists. Come on up. Good morning. So we're going to be seated. Okay.
Do we have mics for all of us?
We have 3 to share.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all for making the time to be in this space with us. I'm super excited to be joined by these 3 amazing panelists who are doing amazing work in their community. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Jessica Rodriguez, and I'm the Food Security Program Coordinator with the County of Marin, working within the Community Health and Prevention Unit of Health and Human Services. My role is to provide backbone support to the Marin County-wide Healthy Eating Active Living, also known as the HEAL Collaborative. The Marin County HEAL Collaborative's goal is to advance our shared priority of advancing work that supports community empowerment, such as control over decision-making processes, self-determination, and community leadership, with a local food system, and promotes leadership from low-income Black, Indigenous, and people of color, also known as BIPOC communities. Today I am joined by the co-leads of the HEAL Collaborative's community action teams. The community action teams are designed to create a space to co-create solutions with community leadership and provide processes to amplify community voice. I'm going to start with some quick introductions, starting with Maite Duran. Maite Duran has been working with families of the Canal community since 2000. She joined Alcohol Justice in 2013 with the objective of developing a youth program for the prevention of alcohol and other drugs. Now, Youth for Justice is a vibrant youth program that engages kids, youth, and parents in community organizing, leadership development, and opportunities for after-school activities. Our next panelist is Jamir Reynolds. Jamir Reynolds is the founder and executive director of the Marin County Cooperation Team, also known as MCCT. Jamir has always had a strong desire to serve his community and has worked his way through college as an advocate for adults and children with mild to severe developmental, physical, and mental disabilities. Focused in Marin City, a historically Black community in Marin County, it is MCCT's and Jamir's hope to empower Marin County's historically underserved communities and most vulnerable residents to hope to empower, to increase their health, wellness, educational outcomes, and economic opportunities, leading to an overall improved quality and life through service, relationships, connection, and equity. And our last but not least panelist is Madeline Nieto Hope. Madeline Nieto Hope is the Director of Youth Services for West Marin Community Services, which serves as a central hub for a diverse range of services that supports the various communities throughout West Marin. Madeline is deeply committed to the growth of our youth and developing their passions. Guided through the values of self-sufficiency, human dignity, and social justice, West Marin Community Services supports programs and services that ensure the well-being of individuals and families. Thank you to all our panelists for making the time to be here. Now let's move into our questions to hear more from them. And for these questions, we will be going in no particular order, starting with Maite. So Maite, my first question for you. What could a community food system look like in your community, and why is it something important to support?
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. The Canal community, as you may all know, is a small geographical area, but 18,000 residents may live there, and that may be a low count. So for us, a food system will integrate the small community gardens that may be built inside the apartment buildings. Also, we envision having an abundance of fruit trees planted in public spaces, along the sidewalks and green spaces in front of the buildings, and also in the buildings themselves where there are small areas that could allow plants and small gardens. And also the developing of community gardens so that people can be actively growing healthy foods, organic foods, to increase their intake of vegetables, fruits, and provide for their health.
Thank you, Maite. My next question, same to you, Jamir. What could a community food system look like in your community, and why is it something important to support in Marin City?
How's everybody doing? All right. For us, it would allow Marin City to show the world how powerful this community is, but also provide the opportunity to have a food system that reflects the Marin City community. Oftentimes, folks with great ideas come into Marin City and drop something without talking to anyone on the ground. You have entrepreneurs in the towers and in the flats who are running full-fledged businesses, from marketing to menus to every other thing that is available, but just without the resources. There needs to be an opportunity for a coordinated effort around food systems. We have gardens up on the hills and at the CSD and at the school. There's a totally, fully functioning food system that can occur in Marin City. But the things that we're being denied is information, access, and utilization. And we know that in food systems, as it pertains to Marin City, you can get one or two, but you won't get all three. And so really just having the opportunity for Marin City to flourish like it's been flourishing throughout, just really the systemic racism, the access to healthy food, to it being a food desert. The infrastructure is there. It's just that we need the support that we've been denied.
Thank you, Jamir. And moving on to Madeline to talk about what a community food system could look like in the region of West Marin County.
Hello? Okay. So West Marin is a much larger geographic area, and we have a lot more individual communities in and around all of West Marin. And really, the pandemic has allowed us to be a much more coordinated geographic area, and yet we still have a lot of areas that are not coordinated in the most ideal way. I think from my point of view, I think that a coordinated landscape would include the school communities being able to have production gardens and able to provide access to families who are enrolled in those schools to get their hands in the dirt. I think the land trust, the community land trust, and the agricultural land trusts are other geographies that actually support our community but don't have a lot of places for accessing for the communities of people who live in the area. And then I I'm sorry, I'm going to have to look at my notes. Right now, there's a lot of different stakeholders in West Marin. There's the federal, state, and local stakeholders, and the coordination of all of those stakeholders is very hard for the local people who live in the community to know how to navigate in those systems. And I think that the community-based organizations and mostly the community-based organizations that have the food pantries have really played a significant role in helping the most vulnerable individuals in our community access food that comes to us through the mobile programs that are happening in West Marin. So without the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, without the rolling route, without the mobile pantry from the food bank, I feel like there wouldn't be as much equity across the region in terms of people accessing sort of fresh and healthy food. We don't have community gardens in all of the 4 geographic hubs. I think it would be great if we did have more community gardens and have coordination between the community gardens and the school gardens. And then also there's a lot of individuals growing food that are farmers, and I think just making more of that land accessible to individuals who have potential to grow food who just don't have the opportunity to do that. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Madeline, Jameer, and Maite. It sounds like there's a lot of similarities in the communities, but you each are facing your own unique situations that are we needing to work through. So let's go ahead and dive a little deeper into the needs of the communities. So this next question is for Maite. How do you see the role of cooks, both those in the industry and those at home, in strengthening economic opportunities in the canal? In what ways could a public market support this?
There's a large number of home cooks in the canal area. And this is a vital part of the economic life of the community. 94901, the zip code of the canal area, has the most talented cooks, chefs, sous chefs, living there than any other area in Marin County. That is the service industry, the restaurants and hospitality. So if we leverage the talent, the existing talent and expertise of these chefs in order to maybe be instructors of aspiring home cooks that want to develop their small businesses, we will have a lot of incentive and the necessary help for these home cooks to develop their small businesses so that the money created by this industry can recirculate in the canal, lifting up the economy of the local neighborhood. I think we just have to think, in different ways, and listen to what people are saying and what people are already doing, instead of like what Jameer was saying, have experts who know very little about the community, who have no connections with the community to tell us from top down what they think is best for the community. I think I think people have been doing their businesses, creating what they know, and I think with the expertise that can be leveraged, we could have a really functional food industry. And the local food market can be a physical place for people to grow their local clientele, and again, have that industry be the base for the local community.
Thank you, Maite. Very well said. This next question is for Jameer. Why is it important for community members to have ownership opportunities within the Marin City Foodscape? Why should cooperative models be supported?
So before I begin, I want to put something into context. The household income in Marin City is $54,150. But if I go down and I make a right at the light, it jumps up to $121,000. If I go back to the same light and make a left and go to Mill Valley, it jumps up to $171,000. That right there should tell you why ownership opportunities are important for the Marin City Foodscape. This would allow the economic trajectory to change. This would allow for business owners who operate out of their homes to become more empowered and to develop a business model that's sustainable and set aside for Marin City residents. Imagine going to a community and everything that you need is in that one spot. That's Marin City. There's always someone who knows someone who knows someone, whether it's food, it's housing, mental health, credit repair. It's a one-stop shop. But what happens is the funds necessary for those businesses to thrive, it's always giving crumbs. If a grant is $100,000, you'll give $4,000 to an organization in Marin City and expect them to work miracles. And when they can't produce the outcomes that you're looking for, you give up on that. This is why it's important for the Marin City Foodscape to happen. I know a woman in here right now who fed about 100 people out of her own kitchen, and her name is Ayin Ashby. I know that. So just imagine if we gave her the space to work. Just imagine if we poured into these communities that have been doing it with very little. And I'm going to say this in the end. As African Americans, we were always given little, but we turned it into some of the greatest things that this earth has ever seen.
Thank you, Jameer. Moving on to Madeline for West Marin. What is the importance to access and ownership for land for the West Marin Foodscape? How would this compare to the current agricultural sector?
So I think in West Marin, there is a power dynamic there in terms of who owns land and who doesn't own land. And I think it's a really hard challenge for the individuals who don't have the resources to buy land to actually own land and farm it. And so in West Marin, I think there's very limited opportunities for that. But I do think that with the land trust, the community land trust, and with MALT, and the Marin Resource Conservation District, I feel like there are opportunities for that to develop in terms of the Farm Bureau and farmers who are part of that sort of stakeholder group that has all the power, and they could open up opportunities for individuals potentially to own pieces of land or at least have access to land. I think that the importance of access is that a lot of people in West Marin just want to feel like they belong in the community, and I think that there's very limited places where people feel like they belong or they're welcomed into. And especially our Latino population and our BIPOC population, I feel like there's very limited places where families and young people feel like they belong to and are welcomed into. I think the other thing is that in terms of getting, having access, I think there's a lot of unmet potential in West Marin. A lot of our families in the school districts, and especially our BIPOC populations enrolled in the schools, are heavily leaned upon for fundraisers and food producing sort of activities to help the schools become, and the school is also a very strong stakeholder in the regions, to basically make the schools fundraisers successful. And I feel like a lot of those families don't have access to kitchens. They don't have access to spaces where they can go and grow the food and make the food and bring the food to market. There's very few spaces other than San Geronimo Valley Community Center that have integrated programming that are like incubator programs where they actually help an individual kind of pass through all of the barriers until they actually have something successful that they can bring to market. And I think we need more spaces like that. There is a lot of isolation across West Marin, and inviting people into community is a really essential part of feeling healthy and part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that we could do better in West Marin, but I think that there's an absence of tolerance across the region for the most vulnerable people to have power. And I think that we're trying to break that down and deconstruct that a little bit, but it's very complicated and it's very hard to do across such a vast area with stakeholders who all have very different backgrounds. And really, I would say in my experience, the County of Marin, through Health and Human Services, through Marin County Office of Education, through the support of the Marin Community Foundation, it's really some of those opportunities that I've been able to participate in that I feel like we've had the resources to break things down and kind of get into the nitty-gritty, the nuts and bolts of why this is happening. But it's a very a region that's very hard to track. And then we have this enormous visiting population that basically masks everything that goes on sort of at the ground level. And it's a challenge. So community kitchens, I think, would really change the opportunities for our most vulnerable populations. And I think having our, like AIM has the farmers market in Point Reyes, I think more opportunities like that come as pop-ups and give people access to be in the space with other stakeholders is really what a lot of our families need.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing from all of you is that the power dynamics as it relates to food is very front and center in the communities, and that often gets ignored. And we all eat, but we know that we eat in different ways. Am I right? And moving on to our last question for Maite, we'll start with Maite. What have you learned about people's interaction with healthy food by working directly with the community that other people might be making an assumption about for the canal?
I've been working in alcohol justice, youth for justice for the last 10 years. So I have a lot of experience working with kids, youth, and parents. Youth for Justice currently offers a cooking class for teens called Saberes y Sabores, Knowledge and Flavors. And in this cooking class, we introduce different types of organic, beautiful, fresh foods. We introduce or reintroduce ancient grains from our ancient traditions like quinoa and chia. And we talk about the benefits of those grains, and we talk about how to cook with them in a different way, in a healthier way. We introduce organic fruits and veggies. So what we know with kids is that when kids are involved in growing their food, in cultivating their food, and getting their hands dirty, and producing that beautiful tomato, they will eat it. They will cook with it, they will love it, and they will eat it. At the same time, and working with parents, we know that eating healthier and having healthier options is not a function. It is a function of wealth. If you don't have money, enough money, you are going to choose quantity over quality. And so that's what we find in our community. But parents are eager to learn about nutrition, about foods that can benefit their health, that of themselves and their families. Also, we recently hosted a cooking series with a chef specializing in Mexican healthier cuisine. And so this class was geared toward home cooks that were thinking about starting their own businesses. And so they had a wonderful time, and I had a wonderful time and learned a lot from the chef. And I learned how the entrepreneurs were eager to learn from the chef tips on how to make their offerings healthier. So we all want to be healthy. And it's not a function of, some of us don't want to, some of us can't afford it. And so that's I think the bottom line. Wealth also gives us the free time to study the issue. And our families do not have that luxury. They work 2 and 3 jobs, and they cannot afford to be on top of the news and what's healthy and what's not. So we have to reinvent ourselves and reintegrate our knowledge from our ancestors, and revalue the foods that our ancestors taught us to eat, that now are in the fancy supermarkets as superfoods, but back then it was what we ate. Yeah. So that's what we learned. Also, we have a group of youth called the Pachamama Protectors. Pachamama is a Quechua word to mean Mother Earth. And so these young folks are learning about horticulture. They are learning about foods from our ancestors and how to reintegrate it into the community, and how to go learn about what to plant, and eager to plant sanctuary little gardens for pollinators, and beautify the community, give more access and affordable healthy foods to the community, as well as beautiful spaces to just enjoy and thrive in them.
This next question is for Jameer. What are some of the skills, assets, and desires around healthy food access in Marin City that others might not be aware of?
Real quick, whoever had that phone on, you know that phone was supposed to be off. I'm going to start with desires. There is a desire around an opportunity to show that we have the capability to produce what's ever given to us, whether it's from the food bank, a bounty box, or anything else. But the goal is, I may be unfamiliar with the ingredients. And so, how many of you know what to do with bok choy if I dropped it off to you right now? Not a lot of y'all, right? And also cultural representation. Speak to the community. Allow them the opportunity to have a say-so of what goes into their fridge. Be respectful of their space. Oftentimes we drop off bags of food and I don't have anywhere to put them. It's not that I don't want it. It can't fit into my home. And what am I going to do with the ingredients in this box? The assets around that exist in Marin City, people are already running full businesses out of their homes, from bookkeeping, again, to marketing, to producing a different menu every day. We have gardens that sit up on the hills, and how about we test the soil so that we can use those gardens? We know that the Navy was around here, and we know that the Navy buries stuff. How about we go into the schools, MCCT, along with Mr. Curtis Akins, we're gonna go into the schools and start allowing our youth to be a part of this food discussion. We have elders in the community that have underlying issues. All they know is how to cook like Big Mom or their auntie showed them how to cook. So how about giving them the opportunity to say, hey, we can have the same recipe, but how about we cut back on some of the salt? How about we use something different? See, the goal is to provide guidance, and you have people in Marin City who have the skill set and comprehension level to understand, but you just can't drop off a box and expect us to know what to do with it without even talking to us. And we all know a group of people who say we fed Marin City and it goes into the grant, but they don't even take into consideration, we don't even eat that. So again, we have the desire to want to win, and we have the skill set to understand and turn nothing into something, but we just want a chance at healthy foods, and getting the access to them. And that's something that you might not be aware of.
Thank you, Jameer. And we're running low on time, so Madeline, if you could quickly answer this question for us.
Okay.
How do you see healthy foods helping to bridge the divide between the different cultural groups in West Marin?
So I think just briefly, I think healthy foods and the foods spaces that I've gone into, I think it builds tolerance to understand other people's menus and foods and spices, and I think that that's a very healthy part of building community. And I think it's always good to be increasing tolerance of each other and how different we all are, and how I think the other thing is the talent and knowledge that is basically dormant or unseen across West Marin is pretty vast. I think there's so much talent in these home cooks and potential micro business individuals that I just don't think that they have access to the resources to start businesses and or pay for permits or pay for what it takes to start a business. And I think the cultural groups in West Marin, I think, includes the ranchers and the Farm Bureau. But again, I think that power dynamic is going to be in the way unless there's some real intentional work that gets done to build capacity to be inclusive and equitable and to celebrate diversity. And I think that it's a very hard part of doing meaningful work in West Marin.
Thank you. So that concludes our panel. Just want to give a final thank you to our panelists for all the great work that they're leading in their community and for uplifting the unique needs that they all face. And if you'd like to learn more about the Marin County Heal Collaborative, you can visit marinheal.org and keep up with the great work of our collaborative. Thank you, everyone. You stole 2 minutes.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. There is a lot going on in all of our communities. Earlier this year, at our forum in June, we recognized a woman who sells tamales in West Marin, and not only for her importance of feeding her friends and neighbors, but also as a community connector. So all of this is important in many ways. I want to welcome our next panel, Jessie Paran from Marin County Health and Human Services, and her panelists, Susie, Danielle, Katie, and Jenna. Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. It is, after all, healthy eating, active living, so I know we've been seated for half an hour now, so take a micro break to stand and get the blood circulating. That's very important. Thank you. Yeah, someone's like, oh, my legs are asleep. Yes, let's do that. Raise your arms, stretch. Yes. We do. Oh, there's even demonstrations here. Wow, very good. Thank you for indulging me in that. Just a healthy practice. I'll get right to it. Good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure for our panel to be here today. All of us are here from the Marin County Department of Health and Human Services. Are we okay on the mics? Not sharing? Okay, all right. So I'll just get right on with introductions. My name is Jessie Paran. I'm a Division Director for Public Assistance with Health and Human Services. If you're not aware, Public Assistance administers programs that support the health, nutrition, safety, and self-sufficiency of Marin residents. Some of the programs that we administer include CalFresh, Medi-Cal, CalWorks, Foster Care Eligibility, Adoptions Assistance, and KinGap. You will hear today about Medi-Cal and CalFresh out of those programs. On my left is Susie Aceves. She's the department analyst for CalFresh program. Susie has a bachelor's degree from San Jose University and is currently the CalFresh analyst for the Marin County HHS Public Assistance Branch. She implements CalFresh policy changes and collaborates with our community-based organizations and other HHS departments to facilitate access to the CalFresh program. I'm just gonna pause here because folks who work in the government have this like really bad disease of jargon. And people are like, what is CalFresh? CalFresh is also known as the food stamp program. So California likes to rename federal programs as their own. So Medicaid is Medi-Cal and food stamps is CalFresh. So just for folks who may not know that. Next to Susie is Danielle Nimi. She is the Medi-Cal analyst for the department. In this role, she supports the program for the county, including implementing policy changes and conducting outreach. Danielle has a bachelor's degree from San Francisco State University and recently graduated from the Bay Area Social Services Consortium Executive Development Program. Ooh. Next to Danielle, we have Jenna Ray, Senior Nutritionist, RDN, with the County of Marin Aging and Adult Services with HHS. Jenna received her bachelor's degree in dietetics from Michigan State University and completed her dietetic internship at Montana State University. She is a registered dietitian for the older adult nutrition programs of Aging and Adult Services, which include congregate meal and home-delivered meal programs. Jenna oversees all nutrition and food safety aspects of these programs and other nutrition programs. Last but not least, our amazing demonstrator of our stretch. I need to get you next time because I liked how you were doing that. Gady Beltran, RD IBCLC, is a registered dietitian and international board-certified lactation consultant with more than 15 years' experience in public health program management. As the Women, Infants, and Children, also known as WIC, program manager in Marin, HHS, she oversees all aspects of the program, including provision of nutrition education, nutritious foods, breastfeeding support, and healthcare referrals for income-eligible individuals who are pregnant or postpartum infants and children up to age 5. I am in awe of, sometimes you have like subject matter experts, it's a little intimidating. That's kind of how I feel right now, and I'm glad that I'm on the asking side and not on the answering side, because there is so much firepower today here. So my goal is I'll have the same 3 questions for everyone, because that way you'll get to share the amazing services and programs that is being offered by Health and Human Services. So I'm just gonna start off with this one question. I told them, it's like, I can talk about my program for an hour. So I told them, we're gonna have a time limit. So I know I can talk about CalFresh and Medi-Cal all day long, but tell us about your program. Who do you serve? How does your program benefit the health, well-being, and self-sufficiency of our Marin residents? And how will people access your services? So I'll start off, I'm gonna just mix things up. I'm gonna start off with Gady. I like to keep you on your toes.
Yes, you did. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Gady Beltran. I've been with the county for about 15 years, and it is my pleasure to be here with you this morning. I represent the WIC program. We're a team of about 10. It's changing, it's fluctuating. I say that because I'm gonna make a plug right now. We are in need of a bilingual lactation consultant. So if you know anyone who's looking for a part-time job, has a passion to support breastfeeding and healthy eating, let them know that we have this opening. So send them over to me, gbeltran@marincounty.org. WIC is a national program, actually, and we provide, the core of the services that we provide are to ensure that we have a healthy community. And how do we do that? We focus on establishing successful breastfeeding. We start at pregnancy. We provide breastfeeding support, breastfeeding education early in pregnancy. I'll tell you about the referral process in a minute. And then we move on to the nutrition of someone who's pregnant. So how do they feed themselves? What is healthy to eat during pregnancy? We also promote active activity, staying active. You saw my demonstration. And we provide nutritious food. There is a change that took place not too long ago, actually, just around the time of the pandemic hitting us globally. We switched over from, you guys probably know WIC as a program that offers checks, but we no longer offer our benefits via checks. We provide a EBT card. So all the benefits, right, food benefits, I provided now electronically. So our participants get their benefits monthly. Things have switched, and I know that's a question that we will do later, but our services right now are mainly done remotely, but we do welcome families to see us face to face because, again, our core services revolve around nutrition education and breastfeeding support. So we want to meet families where they are. Sometimes it is easier for them to meet us over the phone. Sometimes it is easier for them to see us face to face. We're co-located. We have 4 sites in Marin. We have our core site in the Canal at the Health and Wellness Center. So I invite you to refer your families to us. We do take walk-ins. And then we have satellite sites. We support our community in Marin City. We support the community in Novato, and we're also in West Marin. We know that our West Marin families have an issue connecting with us because of poor reception, cell phone reception.
connection there. So we welcome them face-to-face at the West Marin Public Health Social Services site. I forget the names. We switch names often. Not often, but again, overview of WIC. I feel like I wasn't clear of the core services. So we serve families with children up to the age of 5, and core services include nutrition education, breastfeeding support, offering supplemental foods, linking them to resources in the community. That's something that's very, very important to us, is seeing that the families have access to your services. We are seeing an influx of families coming to us from Central America, Mexico. They're new to this country, so it's important that we're up to date also as providers on the services that you all provide. So I know that later on we will touch on how we can all work together to see that we have cross referrals happening, and that the families are aware of the services that you all provide as well. So I'm going to end it there.
Yeah, thank you, Gady. And I love that we start from the beginning of life, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to now move on to the later part of life, to Jenna. Jenna, tell us about your program.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. So just kind of briefly talking about our programs that we do, we have two kind of main big ones, which are federally funded through the Older Americans Act, and those are our home delivered meal program and our congregate meal program. Home delivered meal, pretty self-explanatory, but our congregate meals is where older adults can come together at a senior center or community center and share a meal. We do offer a number of other nutrition programs for older adults, but those are typically smaller, and it's through one-time funding, so it's often temporary. And so who do we serve? So for both of our big programs, anyone who is in Marin who's over the age of 60 is eligible. And then for a home delivered meal program, there's a few extra requirements. That being they have to self-attest to being homebound, and then be considered frail. And we measure frailty by assessing their abilities to do activities of daily living, or ADLs. And then one thing that's really big for our programs is we don't have any income requirements. And this is really important to us because we get to serve a lot of people that are in some of those gaps. They might not be eligible for other programs based on their income, but we're still able to serve them if they're in need. And this is also important, knowing that 10% of older adults in Marin consider themselves to be food insecure. And then some of the benefits of our program, of course, with our Older Americans Act funded meals, they do need to follow strict nutrition guidelines. These are set by the state and using the dietary guidelines for Americans. And this ensures that we're serving healthy meals and we're making sure that older adults are getting the nutrients that are important for them. Also with our Older American Act meals, it requires a dietitian on staff, that's me. But of course we do regular nutrition education components added with the meals. And this helps our older adults make healthy choices on their own. With our home delivered meal program, people are able to continue living independently with dignity. And then our congregate meal program, it helps serve their need for socialization. Oftentimes senior centers or these community centers will combine this time with senior activities.
Thank you so much.
I'll mention how to apply for our programs later.
Okay. The amazing thing is, just when I've worked in HHS for 5 years and I thought I knew it all, and I talked with this panel when she said that there was no income threshold, I was shocked. I'm like, why don't I know this? So it's amazing, you can learn something every day. And I love the piece of just, there's the nutrition, but there's also socialization, which is so important, that we're really attending to people's whole, needs. Now I'm gonna move over to Danielle Nimi, talk about Medi-Cal. Now Medi-Cal, for folks, is the Medicaid program and the federal program administered in California. And when we talk about Medi-Cal, we first have wait a minute, what's the connection with food? Medi-Cal, healthcare. And maybe Danielle, you can highlight first, briefly tell us what Medi-Cal is, and then what's the connection to food for today's forum.
Of course.
Thank you, Jesse. And hello, everyone. Like Jesse said, my name is Danielle Nemi. I'm the Medi-Cal program analyst, and I can hear a lot of you thinking right now, this is not a health panel, this is a hunger forum. What are you doing here? Well, I'm here because, for one, Medi-Cal is a health program, and you're right. When you think of Medi-Cal, you think of going to see a doctor, you think of seeing a mental health provider, a dentist, a vision provider, and all those things are correct. Those are all services that Medi-Cal offers. And it offers a new service, which is why I'm here today, and it's called Medically Tailored Meals. So this is a new service that's offered through the Medi-Cal program as part of the CalAIM policy initiative. I'm not here to talk about CalAIM because it is an enormous change that's happening for Medi-Cal, but a sliver of that is the Medically Tailored Meals program. So what this is a program that provides Medi-Cal beneficiaries with certain eligibility requirements with up to 2 meals a day for up to 12 weeks or longer if necessary, so that they can, well, I will tell you the benefits of that here in a second, but to be eligible for the Medically Tailored Meals program. For one, you have to be a Medi-Cal beneficiary. That's like a hard requirement. For two, you have to be a partnership. You have to be enrolled in partnership. So in Marin County, we have 52,000 people-ish, a little bit more than that are enrolled in Medi-Cal, and 48,000 of them are currently enrolled in partnership. Well, give or take. So most, but not all, Medi-Cal beneficiaries are actually enrolled in partnership, which is our managed care provider here in Marin County. So in order to be eligible, again, you have to be a Medi-Cal beneficiary, you have to be enrolled in partnership, and then you have to meet certain eligibility, such as you have to have a chronic health condition, such as diabetes, cancer, congestive heart failure, gestational diabetes, and certain mental health disorders. There's a long list of them I'm not going to get into here for time purposes. Or you have to have been recently discharged from a hospital or a skilled nursing facility. Or you have to be at risk of being hospitalized and or going into a skilled nursing facility. And last but certainly not least, or have some medically complex needs that would be really beneficial to have medically tailored meals. So this is a new service that Medi-Cal is offering. And the thing is that not all counties are offering this, but Marin is. So as part of the CalAIM initiative, managed care plans can opt in to provide these medically tailored meals. And thankfully in Marin County, again, our one managed care provider that we have partnership has opted into that. So I'm really, really thankful that there's this new service that we can offer people. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to talk about.
And people can apply for Medi-Cal by?
Well, we have all kinds of ways people can apply for Medi-Cal. So you can apply online at benefitscal.com. You can apply on Covered California, so it's coveredca.com. You can call our call center.
1-877-410-8877.
She would know.
Double check that. I dream about that number.
Confident
but it's a
that's the number.
1-877-410-8877. We'll make sure we get you the right number, though.
Thank you. You can mail in an application, you can fax it in if you happen to have a fax, and also you can come into one of our offices. So we have an office located at 120 North Redwood in San Rafael. We have an office in the Kerner campus.
3240 Kerner Boulevard, yeah. And we also have one at West Marin.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, but if people just that's a lot, just think benefitscal.com. Benefitscal, one word.com. All right, last but not least, CalFresh. Tell us about CalFresh.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. So like Jesse said, I am Susie Aceves, and I am the CalFresh analyst. And CalFresh is what California, because we're special, calls the SNAP or the food stamp program. This is a great program that provides the opportunity for qualifying individuals who are low income to access food benefits assistance. So it services the elderly and disabled, families, the homeless, students who meet certain criteria, and so it really helps a large population get access to food. And their focus is nutritious food, because as we all know, a healthy diet helps prevent chronic conditions such as diabetes and heart disease, high blood pressure, and actually a lot of really awful chronic conditions can be prevented through a healthy diet. So CalFresh really focuses on educating recipients and on helping them make good food choices. And really, it has a positive impact also on the community's well-being, because what happens is when you get assistance to purchase healthy food, then your other income, if you have other income, is freed up to spend on other things that you need, on your rent, on your phone, utilities, all of that. And it also stimulates the local economy, which is important, because then if you're spending your money locally, like in local farmers markets, then what you're doing is really boosting your own economy in your community, creating jobs, and so on and so forth. So CalFresh is just a great program that really benefits all of us, even the people that don't receive the benefits. Also, where was I with this?
Well, while you're figuring out where you are on that, maybe one thing I can say is,
Yes.
one interesting thing is, typically we have around 10,000, 9,000 individuals participating in the program for the past few years. Since the pandemic, that number has gone up to 13,000 and has kept steady. There's a lot of talk about the pandemic, post-pandemic recovery, but we really haven't seen that happen. And in fact, our application numbers have just been they've been very high every month. We really haven't seen that drop off in the number of people who are seeking services and applying for services. So, that post-pandemic recovery is not really quite happening. We have a lot of people, as we know, who are really being hit by inflation. But maybe before we move on to our next question, because it talks about the pandemic,
Right.
is I know in the opening statement by our director, Carrie Bierman, she talked about public health emergency and how much, so I guess if someone doesn't know about food stamps, like, how much do people get on that program? Is it even worth it? The one thing we always hear is, like, it's not even worth it for me to go on it. It's too much trouble or so much paperwork. I don't want to be bothered. So maybe tell us a little bit more about like what those amounts look like. And CalFresh is also loaded on an EBT card, just like WIC. So that's a great thing, very convenient for people participating in the program.
Right, so for a family of 4, I believe the maximum allotment, so it really depends on how much money you're making or your income, right? The maximum allotment is generally around $800 for a family of 4. It's just over 800, I believe. And on top of that, there's programs like with the farmers market, the market match, and CalFresh partnered with them so that if a person goes and purchases a certain amount of, I think they're chips, they basically match that amount. So if I buy $10 worth, they give me $20 worth of chips, and that increases my buying power at a local farmer's market. So it's not just what you get on your EBT card. There are other benefits tied to CalFresh that increases your purchasing power.
You're basically doubling your purchasing power. Before we move on to the next question, there's a question here. The 800 was a month, per month.
Per month,
Yeah,
yes.
great question.
Great question, yes.
So I'm going to transition on to the pandemic. Many of us know the impact. We see it in our communities. So some of these changes happen in the programs to respond to the pandemic. We're in this very, I don't want to say weird time. Like, some of these programs are still here. Some of them are going to go away soon. So I'm going to start with Gady again. Tell us, Gady, like, what has changed with WIC since the pandemic, and what do we see in the horizon?
Great, thank you. I feel like I should address the eligibility portion before I move on to the flexibilities that we have at the moment. But essentially, if a family, a kid who's under 5, if they have Medi-Cal or receive CalFresh, we have a way of seeing that, and they automatically qualify for WIC services if, again, they're in a category that we serve. So there is what we call adjunctive eligibility. Again, if they're receiving CalFresh benefits or they have Medi-Cal, they automatically qualify for WIC services. Otherwise, we would be looking at their family size and income. Really, the eligibility eligibility is that they meet the category. So do they have children under 5? Are they themselves pregnant? Are they breastfeeding? Do they have an infant? And that's one way, right? So category, and then the income eligibility. If they have, again, Medi-Cal or CalFresh, they automatically qualify. And we determine income or eligibility within 5 minutes. It's really something that can be done on the spot, even when we screen them if they walk in. That said, the state, federal requirements required that the family, the individual, be present in order to enroll in WIC. Well, as of the 2020, USDA has really provided a number of flexibilities that allow now families to be enrolled remotely. So the presence requirement right now is waived. Okay. Another requirement was that we have current hemoglobin. We look at the overall health of those participating in the program, and so we do what we call a thorough nutrition assessment. And one thing that we look at is hemoglobin or iron test results. We no longer require them, so that's been waived also. If we have them, wonderful. If we don't have them, it's not an issue at the moment. Height and weights, again, that was a requirement. Right now, if we have it, great. If we don't, we can move on to providing services. So there's a number of waivers in place, and we're hoping that some do stay because it's allowed a lot of flexibilities, and it's allowed us at WIC to reach families, again, via phone or the use of technology or, remotely, rather than them having to come in to see us.
That's amazing, Gady, because we're trying to remove these barriers of people having to provide the same things over and over again. So if someone's already in Medi-Cal or CalFresh, that they can access WIC services. Any changes in the horizon with the public health emergency potentially winding down?
I don't see any changes happening anytime soon. We're hoping, again, that some of the flexibilities remain. Things are uncertain. We are living in very uncertain times, and who would have thought that we would actually be able to enroll families remotely? Like, that was unheard of before. And so who's to say what would come and when that would be?
Definitely something for the community to, speak to their legislators about these waivers and talk about, this has worked and really given the families the services they need. So why bring back those extra steps in the future?
Correct.
So something to think about.
Correct.
Thank you, Gady. Jana, what has changed, if any, during the pandemic for your programs, and what's in the horizon?
Yeah, a lot has changed with our programs, honestly. We have received a number of, one-time COVID relief funding, which really made an impact on our home-delivered meal program. Like Carrie said earlier, it grew by 43% in 2020, and then again 15% in our fiscal year for 2021. And then prior to the pandemic, we were only allowed to serve meals in 2 different ways. Of course, the home-delivered meal and congregate meals. And with the congregate meals, unfortunately, our clients couldn't bring home their meals. So this was difficult during the pandemic, of course, but we were given flexibilities and allowed to serve meals in a grab-and-go style. So people who, again, are not eligible necessarily for a home-delivered meal program could still pick up meals safely. And then, through a lot of these COVID relief fundings, these one-time COVID relief fundings, we created a number of totally new programs, some being our Asian-inspired home-delivered meal program. We've done grocery bag delivery programs for older adults. We've also done the senior produce boxes, or bounty boxes. It sounds like some people are familiar with those. And then emergency meal boxes to help prepare people who are homebound during power shutoffs.
Very important. I just had a power outage yesterday in Santa Rosa. The weather was perfect, so I don't know why. But power outages can happen anytime, and those have an impact when the refrigerator comes down and it affects all the food. So
absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Jana. Any more?
That's okay.
That's right. Okay. All right. I'm going to go to Danielle and tell us what has changed during the pandemic and what's in the horizon for Medi-Cal.
All right. So, well, briefly for Medi-Cal, the PHE will eventually be unwinding, and I know this is a hunger forum, so I don't want to, I don't want to say bore you, but I love Medi-Cal. But if you know anyone who's a Medi-Cal beneficiary or you're a Medi-Cal beneficiary, my ask of you is to make sure that yourself or your loved one has updated their contact information for us. So during the pandemic, we have basically, anyone who's on Medi-Cal has just stayed on Medi-Cal. We're not really asking anything from you. We're just, please go to the doctor, take care of yourself, and that's what we've been asking essentially during the pandemic. But once the public health emergency ends, we're going to resume processing annual redeterminations and redetermining everyone's eligibility. And a lot of people we know have moved during the pandemic. And if we don't have your contact information, you're at risk of losing your Medi-Cal. And I don't want that to happen. So that's my plug to you, my ask to you. Please update your contact information, or if you know someone who's a Medi-Cal beneficiary, please have them call us and make sure that their address is correct. But on a medically tailored meals, which is why I'm here today, there's really nothing changing on the horizon. This is a thing that's here, it's here to stay. The one thing that I would say that is, if you know anyone who meets that criteria we talked about, they can enroll by, they can request to enroll by contacting Partnership Health Plan. I don't know their number off the top of my head, I'm very sorry. But
We're gonna get a bunch of phone numbers to you all before we get out. I mean, we're gonna get to I can't wait to get my cell phone right now. I took it off because I didn't want to be distracted, but now I really regret not having it. But we'll get your phone numbers, important phone numbers to everyone.
Exactly, thank you.
All right. And then so we're kind of almost wrapping up with our panel. So I'm going to go to Susie and then move on to the third question. So Susie, what has changed briefly, and what is in the horizon?
So with the pandemic came a lot of really terrible things, but for CalFresh, they gave us a lot of flexibilities. We are able to waive the required interview. We're able to have more flexibilities for students, so we have more students on aid. And we have been approving emergency allotments. And emergency allotments are huge, and they're so important. So basically what happens is a client who is receiving CalFresh and has income is really entitled to a portion of the maximum amount, right? But with emergency allotments since the pandemic, they've been getting a supplement so that they get the maximum amount monthly. So somebody who might be entitled for $30 a month because of their income is currently getting $250 a month for a household of one. But the flip side is that eventually, when the public health emergency is lifted, these types of flexibilities will go away. And this is where I will ask community-based organizations such as the food bank and everybody else that I work with to kind of help get the word out, to help people understand what's going to happen, but also maybe collaborate to think of ways to help our community members who are going to be losing the extra supplement.
When you said food bank, Marshawn was smiling. Marshawn and Alexis were smiling. You're like, we gotcha. But that's an important point. For many years, many of our participants have been receiving an additional supplement that takes them to the maximum. And many of them may think that that's their regular amount. So this is going to be a huge impact that will be felt by our participants. But just recognizing the time, I just feel so honored to be, I think the first panel just really filled me up and inspired me. And I thought about, this is a unique opportunity. We have a lot of people here who are learning things for the first time, who are thinking, wait a minute, I need to connect with those individuals because that's information I need to share with our community. So how can we in the county and whatever programs, how can we work with our community partners here to maximize opportunities, close any gaps, or address the impacts of upcoming policy changes? I'm going to mix things up because I know we've been going this way. I'm going to start with Susie and go out this way. So Susie.
So for CalFresh, working with community partners is key. They help get the word out about the program, they help squash misinformation, and they help give access to community members for the program so that we can get as many people on as possible. So hopefully you will all remember me, Susie Aceves, or contact our office at 877-410-8817.
Nice. Thank you for that. That's our call center for public assistance.
Yes. That's our call center. And then we can get together. I know that I do some trainings for some community-based organizations to help people who assist others in applying. So collaboration is key in order to help our community members.
Thank you, Susie. Danielle?
Hi, everyone. So again, as I was saying, what you can do as leaders in our community is to really, if you can, spread the word about Medi-Cal, the public health emergency ending, and please encourage Medi-Cal beneficiaries to change their address.
If they've moved. You know, yeah.
Additionally, for the medically tailored meals program, if you can, and I know a lot of you are very influential, I would like to see this program grow. I would like to see it be offered for longer, and if you can advocate with the people that you know who are powerful, because all of you are powerful, I think that this could be something that we could really, really grow in the future. And I also wanted to give a plug to the Saras project, because I believe that they are the vendor that are providing those meals. So they're doing great work, and I appreciate all of you, and I'm just thankful to be invited here today.
Thank you, Danielle. I'm going to put a plug in. There's a program too called the DHCS, Department of Healthcare Services Ambassador Program. So if you want to sign up for that, just Google DHCS Ambassador Program. They'll get you on their list. And every time there's news from the state on Medi-Cal, you will hear that first. And that helps with messaging into the community. Okay.
Just real quick, if
sure.
you guys all, if you have questions about Medi-Cal, you're always welcome to reach out to me. My name is on the flyer. It's Nimi at marincounty.org. I'd be happy to talk to you. I love the community. I love working with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Jenna?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing similarly is just kind of spreading the word about our programs and how to sign up for them, especially to some people who are low-income seniors or they're in underserved areas. And the way that you can sign up, the easiest way is calling our information and assistance line. It's staffed by social workers who will get them the services they need, even if they're not eligible for our other programs. And that phone number is 473-INFO, or it's 473-4636. They can also utilize our online food resource at marinhhs.org to find our other nutrition programs.
Thank you, Jenna. 473-INFO. Thank you. Katie?
Yes, I want to invite you all to refer your families to us. There's an easy way of finding us. You can Google Marin County WIC, and you'll see info on how to get a hold of us. There's a general email address there, Marin County WIC at marincounty.org. But again, if you Google us, you'll find that email address, and as well as our locations. I do want to, again, just see if you know of a lactation consultant to refer them to us.
I'm going to start charging you now. I think that airtime costs,
So yes, I feel it's very important for us to have a fully functioning breastfeeding peer counseling program, and without that lead, who also provides direct lactation support, we can't meet the need of really the lactation need of the mothers that we serve. So please do refer moms who have newborns. We know that those who live in food insecurity, they don't meet their breastfeeding goals as much as those who do have food security. So we want to see how you can support those families as well. How can you support mothers in meeting their breastfeeding goals? How can you support mothers in seeing that, they offer infants the best start by seeing that they receive mother's milk, however that is, pumping or from chest feeding. Also making a plug to you, if you like our glossy materials, if you're a service provider, I have a few materials out there. They're just samples of what we have. Beautiful materials that come to us from the state. You're welcome to come visit us. Again, we're at the Health and Wellness Campus. We have a book campaign right now, beautiful books for children. So please take what you see in the waiting room. If you want more of that, come see me.
Thank you so much, Katie. I hope you all walked up with something, you learned something new, and it's been our pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Before you go, Jesse, could you maybe just clarify who doesn't qualify for assistance? There's so many, it's seniors, if you have children, if you have medical problems, who can't get food assistance in Marin?
Wow, wait.
How much time do we have?
So maybe I'll just keep it short. It's like every program, unfortunately, it's a lot of different programs that have very different requirements. So I highly recommend folks to look at our website in Marin Health and Human Services. They typically have the income requirements. Some of it is income, but I just also want to dispel, because I don't want to say income, because some programs do not have an income requirement. So if in doubt, just apply or call us. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. We are about to start a 15-minute break, but we really need you back here. So please take this time to stretch, get some refreshments, and meet your colleagues, and we'll see you back shortly. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us again. I wanted to take a moment to thank our commissioners in the room. David Bonfilio, thank you for joining us. Carrie Bowerman was here earlier for her presentation. There she is. Hi, Carrie. Dr. Itoko Garcia has joined us. Thanks very much. Dr. Jessica Holman from Marin Community Clinics. Thank you. Oh, right next to Dave. Hi there, Jessica. Thanks, everyone. Okay, we're ready to get started with our next panel and to hear about food assistance programs in our local communities. These programs are vital for delivering direct food services and meals to the people where they live and work and play. So we have a wonderful panel. I want to hand it over to First 5 Marin's longtime friend, Alexandra Dinino. Thank you for being here, and thanks to all of the panelists.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra Dinino. I'm with programs at the San Francisco Marin Food Bank. I actually manage outreach in Marin and also partnerships in San Francisco and in Marin. I am honored to be here with our amazing panelists. We have Lily Palou with North Marin Community Services, Meredith Parnell with St. Vincent de Paul, actually, I'll just say the whole name. Nicole Ramirez with San Geronimo Valley Community Center, and also Alma with West Marin Community Services. So thank you for being here today. I wanted to start off by also thanking our food bank team, Irene Garcia from Programs, Annie Gallo, Keely Hopkins, Mara Sleater with our Marcom department, and also Marshawn Tapman, who's here with us today, and Meg Davidson from our Policy and Advocacy Department for a wonderful contribution in providing information of what I will be sharing with you today. So as we have heard from our prior community and presentations that 2020 tested us in ways we never thought possible. Although 2020 began with concerns about COVID-19, who would have thought, right, that we would end up here over 2 years in a global pandemic? Over the last 3 years with construction and growth, we have experienced less trucking and delivery capacity across both San Francisco and Marin County. And unfortunately, have not been able to restart any additional food programs. Despite the many things that are beyond our control, the mission of the San Francisco Marin Food Bank remains the same, and that is to end hunger in both San Francisco and Marin County. We could not have continued to support our community members without the continuous dedication and support from our amazing partners, some of whom are on this panel and also here in attendance today. I wanted to go over a little bit about our programs. So our programs consist of, as you know, neighborhood food pantries. They are run by trusted community partners. They are actually the backbone to food bank distribution, but more than anything, provide a stable support on food access to Marin residents. We have pop-up pantries, and they are food pantries. They are run by the food bank that were established to meet increased need during the pandemic and are now a permanent part of our food pantry network. We have home-delivered groceries, and this is food that is also dropped off at residence of seniors, families, young children, and people who are pregnant or have a disability. And we have our CalFresh team, who guides eligible neighbors through the CalFresh application process so that everyone can access the benefits that they are entitled to. We want to share with you today that 53,000 households turn to the food bank each week, almost twice as many as pre-pandemic. We just released our annual hunger report, including a survey of over 6,000 participants. 72% of food bank participants have not recovered financially from the pandemic. 79% of participants and 82% of parents, sometimes or often, are worried about running out of food. 49% reported living in 3 or more people in a household. Rising inflation is adding added strain on families, as many struggle to balance the increasingly high cost of living, surging gas bills, and rising food prices. So, federally known as SNAP, CalFresh in California is the most effective anti-hunger support that we have. And as Susie mentioned in the prior panel, it does put money into people's pockets. The food bank always urges the federal government to invest in protecting and strengthening SNAP. We must also pass the Healthy Meals, Healthy Kids Act, and invest in children and families. To this, I want to give a shout out to the Marin Assister Network. It is our partnership of organizations that are here with us today that are duly integrating CalFresh with many other support services that they provide. And since 2014, as a collective, we have been able to submit 4,768 applications at an 85% approval rate. Per the SNAP Impact Calculator, this shows that our impact in Marin County to this day has provided 6,304,328 in SNAP meals. And the economic impact is $31,844,422. I also wanted to thank you, Health and Human Services, for your partnership and hard work in processing and supporting clients with the CalFresh program. Thank you. So, let's get started. Let's hear from our amazing panelists. So this is a 2-part question, and I will start with you, Lily. And so the first part of the question is, can you please share with the community here about the community you serve, type of food assistance that you provide, and what challenges you faced during COVID? So we'll start off with the first question.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra. My name is Liliana Palu, and I'm with North Marin Community Services. I serve as the Community Support Services Manager, overseeing our case management services and basic safety net services for our community. And as the Anchor Human Services nonprofit in serving Northern Marin, we serve over 10,000 participants annually. Majority of these families, individuals, seniors, and children are extremely low and very low income households. Novato is a very geographically spread neighborhood. It's not concentrated in one area, so we do look at how we serve and outreach to our community, and so that's through center-based, community-based, school-based, and site-based services that we provide. Let's see. the second part of the question, what type of food service programs that we have. We, of course, partner with San Francisco Marin Food Bank at our food pantry weekly distribution. We serve, pre-pandemic, we were serving about 150 households. When the pandemic hit, that doubled in size. And so to this day, we're averaging about 300 to 320 households weekly is who we serve in our community. We also have a food pantry closet, so for emergency food assistance for any family or individual who need immediate assistance, and that's canned food, dry foods, and in partnership with Extra Food, who's been able to support us with part of that. And we also are CalFresh assisters. Our case management team doubled in size during the pandemic. They're all bilingual, bicultural staff, Spanish-speaking staff, and so we have 8 on our team who can support our participants in applying for CalFresh assistance if needed. Some challenges, challenges we faced. Well, we know that the community was hit far and wide. And so like I mentioned, we doubled in size for our food pantry distribution, and the first question was, how are we going to serve this many in our community? And so we actually switched our in-person food pantry distribution to a drive-through. And so now we still to this day are serving our participants in a drive-through format or structure. And then we were virtual. Our case management services was virtual. So working with our community members, utilizing text or Google, got Google numbers and we're texting our participants and setting up emails for those that receiving other services where we need to provide some documentation and supporting that digital barrier. And so we were able to transition quickly virtually to support the community, and now back to hybrid model. We are happy to see many of our participants in person.
Thank you, Lily. Meredith.
So I'm Meredith Parnell, and actually I'm here representing St. Vincent de Paul. The food part is not really in my purview, but I thought it was really important that we be here. I'm the Director of Homelessness Prevention, so I could tell you more than you want to know about rental assistance in this county. It's how I've gotten to know Lily really well. But I do want to talk about our food assistance program. So we're best known, our most front-facing thing that we do is our free dining room. And so we've been serving breakfast and lunch in Santa Fe since 1981. We've not stopped. Even during the power shortages, in fact, we served even better food because we have a gas stove and all the town restaurants were freaking out, and so they gave us all their good food from their freezers, and we were serving really good food then. But we also found out that we were essential workers the day the shutdown happened, and we quickly pivoted. So right now, I'd say we're serving 300 to 500 meals per day. We serve everyone, no questions asked. There's no ID. You can come several times. We're just all about getting food out to people. We serve a lot of people who are unhoused, but we serve just a lot of poor people as well. Right now, we're having volunteers make us also about 200 bag lunches a day. So people sign up to do that. Shout out to Children for Change, because they've been very, very helpful. And a lot of folks in the faith community. And a lot of Marin Catholic students are making us lunches. The other thing you should know, it costs us about $700,000 a year to run the dining room. And we rely heavily on extrafood.org and the food bank, but that's all privately funded. We get no government assistance. We raise that money to be able to feed people. So the other way that we also have food assistance is that we have a network of volunteers that we call our St. Vincent de Paul conferences throughout the county. And they're usually sort of based in Catholic parishes, but they serve everyone in their neighborhoods. And during the pandemic, we sort of, as the rental assistance stuff took off, I said, we'll do all the rental assistance in the main office because they're used to doing that. You just feed people. And so during the pandemic, they were dropping off bags of food. They were buying food gift cards so that people get Safeway deliveries, that kind of thing. And that's really kept up. For example, St. Raphael's has a food pantry. It used to be 1 morning a week. It's 5 mornings a week. And the parish has done a lot to support them and the rest of the communities. And they work with the food bank as well. So we're just seeing that food need continuing. I would say during COVID, once we found out that we were essential workers, we quickly pivoted to to-go model, and we started getting food actually from the cafeteria at the jail because the county had to feed their inmates. So they made lunches for us, and we were in turn sending that food out to some of the folks who were homeless who were being put up in motels. It was like the San Rafael Police Department got the San Rafael Department of Public Works to pick up extra food from some of the schools. So it was just like a complicated thing until we could really start organizing our volunteers to make lunches. And I'd say at the height of the pandemic, before we could start cooking ourselves again, we were receiving 400 lunches a day and giving them out. So the dining room is now open for limited indoor dining. And what we're finding is people are still taking their food to go. And so we're both cooking hot meals that we serve to go, and we're also using those volunteer lunches and giving them out to people. And we don't know if it's ever going to change again. I mean, they're kind of watching to see what the weather's going to be, but we just heard that it's potentially going to be a dry winter again, and we're not sure when people are going to be willing to come back. So that's kind of where we're at now, but we're committed to staying open. We'll serve you no matter what, and yeah, that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Meredith.
Nope, sorry. You have it.
Nicole.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me today. I'm here representing the San Geronimo Valley Community Center and our food assistance program. But I did not do that alone. I have a wonderful team that supports me and our efforts to feed our community. The community we serve is the San Geronimo Valley and Nicasio Valley, but we turn no one away. We also serve the service workers that work in the San Geronimo and Nicasio Valley. That's our landscapers, our nannies, all of the service workers that spend all of their time in the San Geronimo and Nicasio Valley. And we serve a predominantly high percentage of seniors as well, living in West Marin. And our seniors, unfortunately, are isolated because we are in the rural part of the county. The type of food assistance that we do serve is we get the support from the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, and with extra food, they have been our kind of our lifeline throughout this pandemic and prior to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, we had a very intimate kind of a farmer's market style food bank. Families and our seniors would come through, grab their food. On the onset of the pandemic, we shut down for only 1 week, and then we quickly pivoted and we went as well to a pop-up site, which we still currently are. Also during the pandemic, our site is small. Like I said, it was intimate, farmer's market style. We had to switch sites because the influx of need grew. On average, we were serving, prior to the pandemic, on average about 130 families, and that was over a 2-day period. Now we are open 1 day, and we are serving up to 300 cars that come through with multiple families in each car. It is, without our volunteers, we would not be able to do it. Another challenge that we had in the San Geronimo Valley was our volunteer base was primarily seniors. And during the pandemic, that they did not feel safe to come out and help. So we relied on the San Francisco Marin Food Bank to then take volunteers, sign them up, and then have them come out to our site. We have had those volunteers for over 2 years now. They're committed to being with us. They love being with us. And we're so grateful to the partnerships that we have to be able to provide food.
So you're not giving them back to the food bank?
We're keeping them. Yeah, and we also have, in partnership with HHS, we have a grab-and-go meal program that has happened after the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, we had a congregate meal that we did twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. Obviously, that had to shut down. We're hoping to get it back, this new year, and hoping to welcome our seniors back. But in the meantime, the seniors have been coming, picking up grab-and-go meals that they can then go heat up on their own and have a nutritious meal. Also, the challenges during COVID, like I said, our site and our volunteers, but we've kind of remedied that. And like others, we probably will remain a pop-up site because of the volume of need. And every week, it's like a roller coaster that we ride. 1 week we'll have, 300, the next week it'll be 290, 160, so we're ready for anything. And our goal is to just provide food to everyone.
Thank you, Nicole. Alma, please share with us about the community you serve.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alma Sanchez, and I'm the food pantry manager in West Marin Community Services. Sometimes I get emotional when I go back and remember everything what we faced in 2020. But West Marin Community Services, we have lots of different programs, food assistance, we have food, emergency food, for, can you imagine all West Marin, a lot of people came to our food pantry. We are open 5 days a week. We provide food for households, homeless, and also people from other counties, workers, people who come from Sonoma County and places around. Well, I just mentioned we have the food that we serve is we have for emergency, and we are in support for San Francisco Marine Food Bank, extra food, and right now we are receiving donations from the farmers, local farmers market, and from the gardeners, from the local residents too. So that helps between deliveries. What we face during the pandemic, or the challenges we face, the first thing was to take the big decision to be open, because all the places around were closed. At one point, we see the needs of people around. Too many calls every day. We didn't have idea what is coming up next to, in the days, and it's gonna be for a week, months. We don't know, but that makes our organization more stronger now. And it was very hard to hear people from the community and other counties. They were suffering for food, financial assistance that we offer to. So it was very, very hard moments that we faced during pandemic. But one of those was what are we gonna do? So we should close, what to do? So as a team, we were like, all the places are closed. And we open 5 days a week. So we reduce our hours. When the past people, we have the food pantry open for the people. They came in and they were kind of like shopping inside. Now we change everything. We bag in everything. We receive donations with bags from the community, and they do recycling with bags right now. And we're doing the tremendous work with the community and our partners, and we support each other. And it's too many things to say about the challenges we face, but what we're all doing in this, and it's, to feel the love from the community was one of the things that make us, continuing with this, with our mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma. I just wanted to say thank you for bringing us into the sacred space in tears. It has been very difficult, and so we are in this space with you together, and thank you. The next part of this question is a great segue into it, and that is, based on the experience in the community that you serve, what are the root causes of hunger that, if solved, could end hunger?
Thank you. It's a very big question, and I really truly wish I had the answer and that I was able to solve that. And I look forward to, in the near future, being part in solving and ending hunger for all. But I'll go over three points that I think are important to look at. The first being that everybody should have access to healthy food, with no doubt. Everyone should. And I think through coordination and outreach and communication to our community, to support and educate our community on what resources are available, whether that be food pantries in their area, public assistance programs like CalFresh. It's important to get that word out, and I think we can do that to support our community as a community-based organization and a community member. And there is a lot of misinformation, and it was touched on earlier. There are a lot of myths about who may qualify, who doesn't, how will it affect you, how will it impact you. And I think it's just really important to keep our staff up to date and our case management team up to date about changes and updates. And that's one way we can support those to have access to food and resources. The second part, of course, I think we all know inflation is at a record high, and it's important for equitable wages. And NMCS is a firm believer in having equitable wages and for our staff and our volunteers, and I think that's the same for all in our community. And then the third point, of course, is affordable housing. Meredith mentioned we've done a lot of collaboration in a rental assistance program. And it's really important to look at affordable housing and looking at renters' rights, looking at continuing the collaborations we've started and throughout this pandemic with other organizations as well as the county, and to have sustainable rental assistance programs. I think that is absolutely important. No family should have to decide or choose whether they should pay rent, pay their utility, or put food on the table for their family. And so, to have these programs is absolutely essential.
I don't know why I have to follow you, but I mean, the root cause is poverty. All of this is about poverty. Homelessness is a symptom of poverty. All of the things we're talking about is poverty. So, that means maybe more of a commitment to something like universal basic income. Like, what a radical idea, right? If I was going to put on a different hat and have my Marin organizing committee hat on, we're looking at what it's going to take to raise the living wage ordinance in this county and see if we can not only lift that wage, but like rising tide lift all boats kind of thing. So we're looking at that. I think not just education around programs, but also lessening the stigma around it, because it's hard. People don't sign up because they don't want to be like that person. So we need to talk about it differently. We need to reach out differently. I think that's important. And again, it's the rental assistance is a huge deal. All the people, what we're talking about is that people haven't recovered. That's why we're still seeing the same demand for food. Well, that same demand for rental assistance is going on, and the state and federal program ended basically as of March of 2022. And guess what? People still need rental assistance to be able to maintain their housing, and that is going to be an ongoing need for the foreseeable future, and we need to address it.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank you for really bringing up a radical imagination. I think it's a great, it's an opportunity to be able to seed creativity and what can emerge next. So food for thought, and let's get moving on it. Thank you. Nicole.
Yeah, it is a big question, the root causes of hunger, but I do believe it's economics and access. And, there's no reason in this country, in this county, that anyone should be hungry, that anyone should be without food, that anyone should be denied access, that I think we are in this county particularly, we have so much wealth, so much resources. It's gonna take all of us to fight this and end it. It's really gonna be a coordinated effort, and it's something I'm passionate about. It's something that my team is passionate about, and it's something that we live for. I just think that we have so many opportunities in this county alone to end it, to really have food access to children starting at age 0, starting before they're alive, starting in the mother's womb to the end of their life. And I really think that it's up to us as organizers, as leaders, as community members, nonprofits, to really make that change, make that effort, and really fight this fight that's bigger than anything. It's not only poverty, it's not only homelessness, but it's life. You're denying someone an ability to thrive. And as I walked up looking at the key words for First 5, it's grow, learn, and thrive. And you can't do that when you're hungry. You can't do that when you're making that decision if I'm gonna pay rent or I'm gonna eat. So I think it's up to all of us to make that change.
Thank you, Nicole. Alma.
Of course, we share.
Well, the same like Nicole just mentioned, economic situation, transportation, and what experience on West Marin area is the access for people to the food pantries. It's a lot of seniors, a lot of people like Spanish speakers, like they don't drive, they don't have a car, they don't have a license. Language too is more bilingual and also other languages, because some people, they don't even speak Spanish very well. I have clients that they speak their native languages from Guatemala or Mexico or other countries too. So that's a big problem. And maybe to be focusing on those things too. Also, more places to. There is no places, too many options around. Do they use their CalFresh? They have the CalFresh, but it's not too many stores to redeem their CalFresh. And that was what they don't have a car to go over the hill to change it, so they don't use their CalFresh. And the same thing with the homeless people. They live in the area, but there's not too many options. I think more communication and like Nicole just mentioned, like get involved more in all, being like together on this, like support each other and give more support to these people. It's what I face like in the area of West Marin is economic problem, transportation, and more options for people to redeem their CalFresh and all this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma.
How about a one word or one sentence answer to your last question? We're running a little.
Oh, God, thank you. So as a conclusion, I just wanted to share that as part of our mission framework at the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, we have identified root causes of hunger to being everything that everybody has talked about today. And all of these and opportunities and areas of focus for us to prioritize and also work on. We are looking at that to advance policy at the federal and also at the Farm Bill and also at the White House conference to really stress the intersection of hunger and root cause issues to hunger. So I wanted to just ask Marshawn if he could just wave. He is with our policy and advocacy team at the San Francisco Marin Food Bank. If you don't know him, please connect with him. Let's see what we advance together. It is time, right? It's no longer yesterday, it's today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. If our next panel could come up while we're changing seats, just wanted to share two things. A little bit earlier, there was a question about the contact number for Partnership Health, and I have it from the source. The correct number is 800-863-4155. 800-863-4155. And while everyone's being seated, I'm sharing from Marin Community Clinics that they are looking for and inviting you to volunteer packaging food and distributing food Wednesdays on Kerner Boulevard in San Rafael and Thursdays in Novato. You can see them outside on your way out. Thanks everyone for joining us for our last panel. Julia's here from UC, and with a great panel for you, we'll get started. Thank you. We are running a little short, so it's like more like 20 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. So as Michelle said, I'm Julia Van Solen Kim. I'm with UC Cooperative Extension, and I'm the North Bay Food Systems Advisor, which means that I work to support and to research how to build a more local and sustainable and equitable food system. So a lot of my work has to do with expanding access to farmers markets, to building gardens and urban agriculture, and developing better local food systems policies. And as part of that work, I help co-facilitate the Marin Food Policy Council, which I invite all of you to attend. All our meetings are open to the public, and the Food Policy Council happens every third Tuesday from 3 to 4:30 p.m. And right now they're on Zoom, so it's very easy to drop in and attend virtually. And we would love to have anyone attend as an infrequent observer or to formally join and become a committed member. So I wanted to share with you briefly a definition that really guides a lot of my work and a lot of the work of the Marin Food Policy Council. And that's the definition of community food security. Community food security is a situation in which all community residents obtain a safe, culturally acceptable, nutritionally adequate diet through a sustainable food system that maximizes community self-resilience and social justice. And earlier this morning, we heard from panelists from across Marin who really have a strong and powerful vision of what an equitable food system for their local community looks like. And now we're going to hear from panelists who are running programs and projects and activities that help expand and build that local food system through their on-the-ground work, connecting with young children, with older adults, with farmers, and even delivering food that would otherwise go to waste to people who need it most in our community. So first, I'd like to, if I can do this. First, I'd like to introduce Liana Orlandi. Liana is with Ag Institute of Marin and oversees numerous grants that support AIMS programs, including the Roll and Root Mobile Farmers Market, Bounty Box, Dig-In Education, and technical assistance programs. She also supports policy and advocacy through AIMS work, as well as chairing the Marin Food Policy Council. Next, we have Deborah Romelli, who's the Director of Development and Community Affairs at Ceres Community Project. Deborah works locally and nationally to promote policies that ensure equitable access to healthy food for those living with serious illness. She is a member of Ceres Leadership Team and Staff Policy Work Group, the Marin Food Distribution Group, and the Food is Medicine Coalition. Next, we have Gina Gillamet. She's the Chief Strategy Officer at Community Action Marin. Gina leads CAM's advocacy and policy and systems change. She works across CAM's food justice, safety net, children and family services, and economic justice programs to leverage their service-based expertise and partner in the community to advance racial justice and economic justice. And then lastly, we have Monica Revisa, who is the Director of Programs with Extra Food. And Monica is responsible for overseeing operations that source thousands of pounds of healthy, fresh food that would otherwise go to waste and delivers it to people who need it most in our community. So With that, I'd like to ask our first question to our panelists, which is, because we're a little late on time, and so keeping it short and concise, in a nutshell, what are the main challenges and opportunities that you see within our local food system, and how do your programs respond to these challenges and opportunities? And let's start with Liana.
Thank you, Julia. I also want to acknowledge all the panelists that came before today doing amazing work. We partner with many of you, and I just want to appreciate all of you. So AIM runs farmers markets. We run the Marin Civic Center Farmers Market that happens on Thursdays and Sundays, as well as some other markets around the Bay Area. One of the main challenges is just the cost of food. Fresh fruits and vegetables can be out of touch, out of reach for a lot of folks, unfortunately. We heard about some of AIM's programs earlier today in the other panels. CalFresh is a big part of something that we support. People who have CalFresh benefits can come to our markets, swipe their card and get tokens, and at the same time they get a match. And they can get up to $10 in extra tokens to buy fruits and vegetables. So that's market match, it's grant funded. And somebody who's using their EBT card at a farmer's market, they can get that match multiple times in a week by going to different markets. It's by the day. So that's a really powerful tool that we have access to, and I encourage you to share that with your communities, that if they shop at the farmer's market, they can get some extra money for fruits and vegetables. So that's the first one. We have a mobile farmer's market called the Roll and Root. That goes out to older adult communities and low-income communities and low-access communities. It also accepts CalFresh and provides a market match. We heard about Bounty Box earlier. This was a program that we launched during the pandemic when folks didn't want to come out and go shopping at the market. And so we created a box where we were buying directly from the farmers. Many farmers lost their restaurant accounts, so this kept money in the pockets of farmers at a time when they were losing sales. And also made it so that some older adults and other folks that didn't necessarily feel safe coming out to the market could just drive through and pick up a box. We also have some boxes that are subsidized and go out to community groups for free. Let's see, I'm trying to be quick here. Finally, I wanted to mention our Racial Equity Fund. We launched this last year. This is a program that seeks to take down some of the barriers to access. We heard about home enterprises, cottage food, kitchens, and sometimes folks can't get started without a little push. And so we launched the Racial Equity Fund to provide 6 months of free stall fees at our markets and also provide a stipend for people who self-identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. So we're currently accepting applications, and I'm happy to talk more about that later on.
Thank you, Liana. And Deborah.
So thank you for having me here today. And there's so much that I was going to say that's already been said. And I think part of the power of today is just learning about each other and identifying what the gaps are. So Ceres Community Project works to engage teens as volunteer chefs in our kitchens in Novato and up in Sonoma County. They make organic, nutrient-dense, delicious, beautiful, medically tailored meals that we deliver throughout Marin and Sonoma counties to people who are facing serious illness that has them needing the best nutrition they can possibly get at a time when it's not always accessible. Everybody's either experienced an illness yourself or watched somebody go through cancer or diabetes and heart disease. And so Ceres is there to provide meals for people of any age, all the way from 2 up into their 90s we've served. We serve family members. And we serve meals that are medically tailored under the guidance of a registered dietitian nutritionist to make sure that the food is appropriate and will help ameliorate rather than exacerbate symptoms. And that's important because we know that everybody here knows food can be medicine, right? But food can be poison too. And we have a lot of problems because I think we have a food system that prioritizes corporate profit over people's health. And so we can all work together to make sure that that we raise our voices for everybody to make sure that we that food labeling changes and things like that. And so I want to advocate for that as well. And I think organics is important. Nature doesn't have a voice. We all have to speak for nature. When you farm regeneratively, when you farm organically, you preserve topsoil, you preserve biodiversity, clean water, clean air, the insects that we depend on as pollinators for our food system, and that's why we're committed to organics, and we spend that extra money. And so much of this work doesn't happen at the individual level, right? Everybody in the room, everybody in our society doesn't have the equal ability to make healthy food choices. And people who are trying to get into organic farmers don't have access to farming, don't have access to the same kind of funding that large institutional farmers do. So there's a lot we can do at the policy level. This work takes systems level solutions as well as individual action. Thanks.
And Deborah, I know you have a lot to say about the various ways to get engaged at the policy level to make these programs more equitable and accessible. Could you very briefly cover how people get connected with Ceres meals if they're experiencing a medical crisis or someone they know is?
Yes, you can get our brochures out in the lobby. Visit our website, ceresproject.org. Wait, who mentioned earlier, sorry, from Medi-Cal, was it Diane? That meals, that we have the medically tailored meal benefit through CalAIM. I was going to talk about that later. We're at the bottom of a big hill, right? That benefit has been adopted throughout California. California is leading the way in public policy again. That's known as a community benefit or an in lieu of service benefit. So California is recognizing that meals, medically tailored meals, could be provided in lieu of another service like a medication to help somebody manage high blood pressure or diabetes. And so they've recognized through the studies that groups like Ceres and others have done that, if we feed people medically appropriate meals, it can reduce healthcare costs, it can ameliorate side effects from medications and treatments, and it can improve health outcomes. So California is investing in that, and so whether you are a Medi-Cal member or just a member of the public, or you know of somebody who's going through an illness, who needs support with medically tailored meals, they can reach out to us. You do not have to be a Medi-Cal member to enroll in our services. Over 75% of our clients receive meals completely free, and again, they're available for family members as well.
Great, thanks for hitting that crucial point, Deborah. Gina, can you go next, please?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I just want to agree with echoing the appreciation for the other panelists through the day. There's been so many great things said, so that's been great to be in the audience hearing that. I'm with Community Action Marin, and our work in this area, we provide human services across the county. We have several of our early childhood program sites that have production farms. So we are growing food that goes into our central kitchen, where we serve over 340,000 meals to the children in our programs throughout a given year, and distribute a lot of that food. And we also have an early childhood learning curriculum where we have kids that are learning about growing, they're learning about nutrition as part of our work. We have a new program that is called Appetite for Change, and this is really focusing on kind of getting to the policy and systems change, which is having community voices and community leaders identify solutions to hunger, the issues that we've been talking about today. So early in the pandemic, we found that about 70% of the families enrolled in our programs identified as food insecure. And so we really saw an intersection of a variety of things. So the Appetite for Change program is about the intersection of racial justice and climate change and food and hunger. And so really helping leaders in the community build their skills both in farming and creating green space in communities, but also in advocating for systems change. So really building that leadership development so folks in the community are leading the solutions that we know are out there.
Great, thank you, Gina. And then Monica, please.
Hi, I'm Monica Revisa, and I'm the Director of Programs at Extra Food. Extra Food is a food recovery organization. So we pick up extra food from grocery stores, schools, caterers, and deliver it directly to those in need. Homeless shelters, food pantries, senior housing. We're closing in on rescuing our 6 millionth pound of food, and this is food that all otherwise would have gone into the landfill, and instead is feeding those in need. And I'll be honest, I feel like the popular kid because I hear so many different organizations talking about extra food. And so it makes me really proud to be part of this organization. And one thing that a lot of the panelists have said is really it's about access and affordability. And those are two of the biggest challenges that our communities face in having fresh produce and food. And that's something that Extra Food is directly working with, because we bring the food directly to, we have 150 different recipient organizations that work with the community. We bring the food directly to their door, and it's always free. So we're doing what we can to keep food out of the landfill and into those hands of those who need it.
Great, thank you. So this next question we're going to try and do pretty brief, and then the question after that's going to be like a 30-second lightning round. So be prepared, okay? Just a heads up. So the next question is, what is the economic impact of the food system challenges that each of you mentioned? And how do your programs result in positive economic impacts right here in Marin?
Okay, I'll start. So when you keep food local, it serves your local economy. We heard that already today. It keeps the dollars circulating within that community. So we advocate for a local food system. If you shop at the farmer's market, that farmer that you buy your food from will keep 90 cents of the dollar in their pocket, versus at the grocery store they only get 15 cents. So that's a huge economic impact. I also wanted to share some numbers around CalFresh. In 2021, through AIM's farmers markets, we distributed $572,000 in EBT benefits that went through. It passed through our markets. People shopped, fruits and vegetables and other foods at our markets. And we distributed $388,000 in market match in 2021. So those are some big numbers around food at farmers markets.
Great, thanks. And Deborah?
Diet-related illnesses cost our country, personally, certainly, but also as a society, trillions of dollars in lost productivity, lost wages, decreased government revenue because people can't work when they're sick, and direct health care costs to people who are experiencing those illnesses. So it behooves all of us to invest in healthy food, and as so many people have eloquently said, these are not individual choices that everybody can equitably make. And Ceres, one of the things we do is we have a youth development program where we engage teens, age 14 and up, in preparing meals, and that's another upstream investment we can make in future health.
Thank you, Gina.
We've been talking a lot about food as the physical health connection, but we also know it has a mental health connection, and so thinking about what it means for people to be involved in raising food that is maybe connecting them to home in our programs, and also the cultural aspect of food are really huge. And so thinking about just the costs of the human costs and the economic costs, which people have already spoken to, they're really huge. So thinking about that's part of what our program in different ways is thinking about.
So I've got 3 quick facts and a story. I'm going to do it quick. If food waste was a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gas behind the US and China. 1/3 of all food produced is wasted. And in the US, 133 billion pounds of food worth over $161 billion is wasted. So the story I'm going to tell is about Larry, who is 80 years old and lives at one of the senior housing facilities that we work with. And the resident coordinator was giving me a tour, and Larry came up to me and she introduced me, and he grabs my hand and he says, "Thank you. I want to say thank you to Extra Food. Because of the donations of food that I get, at the end of the month, I have enough money to take my grandson to the movies, and that means the world to me." And so that is a lot of what the impact is if we can save people a little bit of money or make it more affordable with programs like the Market Match, people can live with dignity. They can take their kids to the movie. They can buy that medicine. They can get their hair done, whatever's important to them. And so that's what this impact of affordable food really is.
Thank you. So for me, each of what you shared is so crucial that when we build a local and more equitable food system, our whole county, all of our communities benefit. There's benefits for the farmers, there's benefits for the eaters, there's benefits for our youth, our children, and for our older adults. And making sure that we keep that local money right here in our economy, bring federal dollars all the way from the federal government to benefit our local community is so huge. I want to underscore that point. So in closing, I'd like each of you to share what policy change has recently happened or is on the horizon that impacts this topic that our participants should be aware of. And looking ahead, do you have a call to action for all of us here in the room? And I'll start with just my own call to action, which is if you're interested in being involved and learning more, then please join the Marin Food Policy Council, attend a HEAL Collaborative meeting, participate in the food distribution group. We have many of local places where we're all collaborating to build a more local food system, to advance food justice in Marin, to ensure that our public benefit programs reach the people who need it most. And so my call to action is join us in this work. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll be quick. AIM constantly is advocating for more dollars to go towards Cal Fashion Market Match. That's probably our number one ongoing effort. There are a lot of other efforts going on that Andy can speak about. He's in the room today. I also want to draw attention to the next Farm Bill coming out. There's tremendous opportunity in the Farm Bill to fund the things that we care about, including organic agriculture, the potential for subsidies for fruits and vegetables instead of just soy, corn, and wheat that's making us sick. So I'll end there. Thank you.
Recent legislation was the adoption of the medically tailored meal benefit in California through CalAIM. Next week, the White House is holding the White House Conference on Nutrition, Hunger, and Health. That hasn't happened in 50 years. The last conference gave us WIC, it gave us SNAP, and it gave us school lunches. So that is a huge historic opportunity. I encourage you all to check out. It's on Thursday of next week. You can participate, you can advocate for some of the solutions being proposed there. For Ceres, we're proposing that the federal government make a commitment of this type that California has to medically tailored meals so that no matter what state someone lives in, they could have access to that life-saving nutrition that's medically tailored. And I think another big thing is if you have the privilege to vote, take that opportunity and use your vote to speak for what you care about, but also to speak for the people in our society who don't have the privilege of being able to vote to create change.
We have a lot of people in Marin County who are eligible but not receiving some of the food programs that we've talked about today. So that's like food waste. It's like leaving money on the table to blow away in the wind or not help put food on tables and help people get what they need. So that I think is a really important thing that we can be thinking about, and with all the community agencies here and the county HHS, how we can work together to make sure that those who are eligible are receiving it. And the call to action, I think, related to that is just for everyone, all of us, to be talking with our local officials and elected officials about food and hunger and what we know, and go with each other, go together to speak about these things. So we have, people and entities that are saying that this is important, and it is, and that's great, and we want actions. So how we can continue to lift those up.
SB 1383 just went into effect in January, and that is a bill aimed at reducing the amount of organic waste going into landfills. So the work that Extra Food is doing is helping to serve that. And what I can ask all of you is when you're visiting businesses and restaurants that you frequent, ask them, what do you do with your food waste? And actually one of the attendees here came up to me and she said, where's the compost? How can we compost our food? So we definitely need to talk to the Embassy Suites and ask them what they're doing to keep organic waste out of the landfills.
Thank you, Monica. That's a great point to give a little shout out to the Embassy Suites. And I don't know if any of you noticed, but as you drove into the hotel on the far west side, they have a garden, and that garden is fairly newly established. And in part because they really wanted to be better rooted here in the community and serving the community and having the opportunity for their hotel guests to have a little connection to nature and to have an opportunity to use that food in their hotel food program. So I don't know the current status of their composting, but definitely as you drive by, take a look out the window, or if you have time, take a little walk around the garden. Thank you again for each of our panelists, and thank you for sharing your passion and stories with us.
Thanks to that panel for being informative and brief. I think we almost caught back up. To wrap us up today, I'm very honored to welcome Andy Nadja Reese from the Agricultural Institute of Marin, who's not only become the leader of AIM, but definitely a leader in food systems and reforms in Marin and beyond. So Andy, welcome.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's so great to connect with people in person. I feel very vulnerable today because I can't hide my stomach in the camera, so I'm like, put on a little bit of COVID weight, but that's okay. But it's just really wonderful to see everyone here today. And again, really want to thank everyone for sharing your stories, your experiences, and it's really on all of us to address hunger and create a better food system. But one thing that I first want to acknowledge is actually where we're standing right now. So historically, we're actually standing on what once were the tidal marshes used by the Coast Miwok tribe. And I think that's important that we understand the original stewards of the land. In the early 1900s, the tidal marshes were actually paved over to create way for agriculture and ranch development. And actually underneath here, you may not realize it, but the marshes actually connect. They're tidally connected through the Galinas watershed all the way out to San Pablo Bay. So there's actually a creek that runs underneath where we are. I think you can kayak through it. I wouldn't recommend it. But it is important to really understand Native people and indigenous peoples as the original stewards of the land. And actually, when we talk a lot about things like regenerative food systems and organic food systems, most of those are actually just marketing terms for indigenous practices. So I think that's important to really acknowledge and understand. But I'm going to take about, I think, 10 minutes. And Michelle, give me some time when I can stop. So I'm just going to take some time to kind of summarize what we heard today and instill in everyone a call to action for how we can move forward together. And one of the key things for me, well, a few things that I think about. So number one, we're in one of the wealthiest counties in California, if not the country, if not the world. And we still have 1 out of 5 people that experiences hunger. That doesn't make sense. We also here in California, we feed the nation. Most of the fruits and vegetables and tree nuts come from California, yet 20% of our households don't have access to the wonderful foods that are grown and produced here locally. Another challenge that we experience is that oftentimes food insecurity and hunger impact the people who grow, distribute, harvest, and sell our foods. What we see sometimes are the same people that are harvesting foods have to go to the food bank or the food pantry for fresh produce. This is wrong. Yes. This should not be the system that we have. And what I'm really inspired by is the pathway to a better future. A few years ago, my husband used to tell me, like, oh, you're not really hearing me. So I went to the audiologist, and the audiologist was saying, like, no, your hearing is fine. You're not listening. And for me, that's one of the key themes that's come up through today. We need to listen, and like really listen. So listen to the communities. Listen to the work that Maite is doing through Alcohol Justice and Youth for Justice. Listen to the work that Jamir is doing in Marin County Cooperation Team. Listen to the work that Madeline is doing. When Alma was talking before about her own personal experiences, her lived experiences, and the ability to serve others through her work, these are the stories and voices that matter. And it's really on all of us to create change. There's ways that we can do that. So we've heard today about the Marin Heal Collaborative. We have a county-wide collaborative, and I've had the privilege of being one of the co-chairs along with my buddy Ryan Thayer, where we're really focused on how we can shift solutions to hunger and food insecurity by listening directly to the communities that are most impacted by lack of access to healthy food, lack of access to housing, lack of access to affordable living wages. It's on all of us to provide the space, the resources, the time, and infrastructure to help empower communities most impacted by systemic racism, by environmental injustices to create change. I hope that people would be willing to support these conversations through the Marin Gila Cooperative. We have our 3 action teams in the Canal, Marin City, and West Marin. We've also, you've heard today from Julia and Liana about the Marin Food Policy Council, because the reality is that all of our food programs, all of the work that we do exists in a bigger context of the policies and the environments that we have. And we do have a responsibility to make sure that people can access resources like CalFresh. But the reality is that if we look up north to the state of Oregon, 100% of people who are eligible for SNAP receive it in the state of Oregon, yet hunger still exists. So the work doesn't end with enrolling people in services or distributing food. That's just the beginning of the work. We really have to make sure that we listen to communities, we engage in thinking about why is it that Marin City doesn't have a full-service grocery store? Why is it that in West Marin, there's no affordable grocery store that accepts WIC benefits? We have to start thinking about these changes. And it's again on all of us to be active through our community, our Food Policy Council, through the Marin Gila Cooperative, but also show up in spaces. How many of you go and visit your local city or town council meeting? So a few of you. So anyone in here, regardless of where you work, your employer, you have the right as a citizen to show up and speak and tell your story. We've talked a lot about the pandemic and the challenges that we faced through that. And is it over? I don't know. We'll see. Depends who you ask. But the reality is that we're facing an even larger crisis of the climate crisis. The climate crisis is a real emergency impacting all of us. And once again, we know the people that will be impacted are the people who grow, gather, harvest, and distribute our foods. Communities that are low income, communities of color, communities that have been subject to the negative impacts of redlining where we live. So we all need to show up in spaces and advocate for change. But again, this begins with all of us learning about ways that we can connect where food is grown to where food is distributed to how food is consumed and preventing food waste. It's not a food problem. It's a power problem. It's a resource distribution problem. And again, we can think about ways to make change. So what I would call on everyone to do today, we have incredible resources here, incredible knowledge, passion. Let's create a plan for change in Marin County. Let's have a Marin County plan. We can end hunger here. We can promote equitable food access. But in order to do that, we have to make sure we provide the space and pay people at the heart of our communities to create change. Again, we have to listen. So before you leave today, I want to make sure you think about what you've listened and heard from others. We've heard about themes of hunger happens here, the tale of 2 Marins based upon your zip code. But I also want to close and share some stories of hope. We're already seeing change happen here, and a couple folks that I want to highlight for the changes that they're making. So Chef Curtis, where are you at? So Chef Curtis is a celebrity chef right here. You are, we'll get your autograph later. So Chef Curtis is working in our schools, working with children as they develop their palates to think about how we can introduce local, culturally relevant foods to create change, because it does begin with our children. You heard earlier today Madeline Hope talk about the Point Reyes Farmers Market. So that's one of our community markets. So 2 people that give me hope in our market. So first is Annie Izaki. So Annie is one of the 4 Pacific Islander farmers in Marin County. 4. And Annie is a biodynamic farmer. She farms on land owned by Dulcini Red Hill Ranch. And Annie's bringing her wonderful produce directly to the farmer's market as her primary source of income. Annie relies on the farmer's market for her income. Next to Annie is her neighbor, Nadia Montoya. Nadia was a graduate of the business training program through Canal Alliance, and she started her own bakery program where she's producing organic, wheat-free, gluten-free products to sell directly to the public for her livelihood. People like Annie and people like Nadia give me hope. I also want to acknowledge Moira Kuhn in the back of the room. Moira, I think, might be our only acting farmer here today. Moira went through an experience. Yeah, you can clap for Moira. Due to the ongoing pressures of drought and the rising costs of product, Moira and her husband Jesse had to reduce their farmland from about 35 to 40 acres to half an acre. And losing restaurant sales was devastating to their business. So if you can, shop the farmer's market. Shop your local farm stand. Sign up for a CSA because, as you heard Liana say, most of that sale will go directly to our farmers. We have to keep our farmers farming and keep making sure we have sources of income for our farmers and food workers. And then lastly, stay in touch with each other. So this is just the beginning of the conversation, so I hope you take the time to share information, follow each other on Twitter, Snap, all the other outlets. I'm on TikTok too, I love TikTok. But really, this is just the beginning. We've heard stories, we've heard tales for change. Now it's on all of us to create action. So thank you so much. We can end hunger in Marin, and let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. I just always admire someone that can stand up there and talk from the heart without notes and say what needs to be said. Thanks to all of you for hanging in there with us. It was a long 3-hour morning, lots of speakers and lots of information. One thing Andy and I spoke about earlier, but there's so much information and so many details about qualifications for programs. We're talking about the need for a clearinghouse, and one place where you can go and check who's qualified, how they can get it, what they can get. So we'll continue that conversation. But thanks to all of you for joining the Marin Communications Forum today. We'll be back next month, October 21st, with a visit from Congressman Jared Huffman, and planning to hear about food issues on the federal level. So join us back again if you like, and go join, volunteer, and participate. Let's feed the people. Thank you.